So, guys, I want to review the AEW All Out match card, and right now there's actually 8 matches, and I do hope they add a few more matches. Like, we're probably going to add Saraya versus Jamie Hayter. Uh, I've suggested that they have Hologram have a match on the card, and then I've also suggested that Layla Hirsch have a match on the card. And I've said this many times: you need to create new stars. You need to take some people from ROH and make them into bigger deals, or you have the maximum male models on the show, but I was also saying too, you need to have FDR versus the grizzled young veterans. Just add matches that make sense right now. Add new people on the card, just so it feels a little different. Because I think that one of the issues that you have like a bit of the same people on the card, and it could feel a little just like a bit repetitive. So yeah, I just hope they add more matches to this. So I want to go through, and I also hope that they defend the women's title because it doesn't look good when you have just Mercedes Moné defender title, because it's almost like saying the women's title doesn't really mean anything. It's just a title where it's secondary to Mercedes Moné, and that's not good. So that's all I have to say about some of my criticisms. I think the first match I'll say Will Ospreay versus Pac. This is going to be a really great match. It's going to be a very athletic Will Ospreay tour de force type of match. He meets different opponents, so Pac is good. He's not doing MJF for a while, really. They moved on, really. So I'm happy that it's somebody new. So Will Ospreay versus Pac. I think Will Ospreay's going to win. Pac is probably going to be a sore loser. He's probably going to take that out in the Blackpool Combat Club. And maybe that could lead to Pac versus Bryan Danielson in the future. So I think he's going to win. I think Ospreay's going to win. This is the match I'm looking forward to. The Young Bucks versus the Blackpool Combat Club. This is going to be a really interesting match. I do think the Young Bucks are going to retain. And I've kind of said that I think what I want to see is actually the grizzled young veterans and a couple other teams come out and mess up the match, really, just to restart the tag team division. Because right now the tag team division is really just the Young Bucks holding up the tag team titles, not defending it that well. Tag team wrestling was something that we wanted to see in AEW, really. So I really hope that that's how they're going to end things. I really don't think that's going to happen. I think the Young Bucks are going to retain. I think either Pac is going to it's going to mess up things, or I really think that the Young Bucks are going to cheat or whatever, really. But they're going to hold on to the tag team titles. I don't think this is... I think you need a big story for them to actually lose their tag team titles, but you have to do that by the end of the year. I would say Full Gear the latest, because honestly, it's getting to the point where, this whole EVP thing, it's not a draw, it's not a good storyline. How the hell does Tony have power, and how the hell do the EVPs have power, and they're kind of overlapping each other, So you have to move on to other things, But I do think that I'm happy to see this match. It's a refresher. It's something new. It's not a repetitive FTR or Young Bucks type of thing, really. The next match is Willow Nightingale versus Chris Statlander. This is a tough match to predict. I really think that you need to have Willow Nightingale win this one. And I think that that's what I'm predicting, because she has to go after the women's AEW championship. This thing with Chris Statlander, it has to end. It really, really has to end. It's beyond repetitive, and it does nothing for both of them. They're going to repeat the same story. It becomes John Cena versus Randy Orton. You have to have an ending with this. So I would predict Willow Nightingale to win. She goes after the AEW championship, and I think that would be good. And then you can take Chris Statlander and have her go after the ROH championship, because you need to have Athena. Athena can't be a 640-day champion with not a real rival, really. So that's how I'd split them up, really. But Will Nightingale, I'm predicting, because you got to have a baby face, and then that's good for her to transition into facing Mariah May. Okada versus to be determined. I think it's going to be Takeshita, Mark Briscoe, and I forgot the other person that they're fighting that's going to be competing. But the point of it is that I think they're setting up Takeshita versus Okada. So I see Okada winning this. The problem with Mark Briscoe is that I think that he's in a lose-lose match. If he wins, you're going to have a third hardcore match, because you have Fatal 4-Way. We know what Mark Briscoe does with the chairs and the somersault. So you're going to have a Chicago Street fight, a Fatal 4-Way with Mark Briscoe, and then you're going to have an unsanctioned steel cage match. So that's a little too much with the hardcore stuff, But the other issue is that you have Lance Archer versus Mark Briscoe. And the problem with that is Lance Archer, you're trying to build him up as a monster, and he has to go somewhere. So you can't do something like have him lose. And then Mark Briscoe's the ROH champion, so you can't have him lose. So I think that what you could do is just have Mark Briscoe beat Lance Archer, or you have Lance Archer just act crazy and be like, walk out, and then Mark Briscoe wins by, just by like by like a 10 count, and then you see Mark Briscoe join John Moxley and say like there's something bigger and better, and then one day at ROH, you have Lance Archer come back, and then now he's serious and brutal, and then you make Lance Archer the ROH champion because, again, you have to kind of make sure the ROH titles, they have feuds and other things like that, and I think like a unhinged, big, badass Lance Archer in that situation would work, So I think that with Okada, it's going to be this. It's going to be Okada versus Mark Briscoe versus Takeshita versus Orange Cassidy, because you're going to have the popular people on this card. There's no way I see Mortos or Lance Archer or the person that Orange Cassidy is facing actually win this. It's going to be it's going to be like those guys versus Okada. I think Okada's going to walk away with this title because that makes the most sense. And sometimes when you fail four ways, you do that so the champion doesn't get pinned, or the champion may pin somebody who's gotten beaten down a lot by other people. Really, it's either still a pin in this, but that's going to be the match. And then you have to do Okada versus Takeshita. Even if you do something like at the Continental Classic, it's Takeshita versus Okada, because it seems like they're going that direction. Takeshita wants to be a bigger deal. Don Callis' family needs a victory to kind of show that they're actually wrestlers and they're not like palling around for no purpose, really. So I would hope that Okada wins and it leads to Takeshita feud, and I'm predicting that to happen and Okada victory. And I'm also predicting those participants: Orange Cassidy, Mark Briscoe, and Takeshita. The next match is Daniel Garcia versus MJF. I'm predicting MJF to win because I think that you can set up a rookie going on a journey storyline. So I would think that it's best for MJF to win this one, and they have a few more matches, and they wrap it up by Full Gear. And then that one you have, or World's End, and that one you have actually Daniel Garcia win. That would be the way to do it. If they kind of have him lose and then move on and don't build him up, that would be bad, really. Unless they want to give him a fuck you, thank you, and bye if he's going to WWE. But I do think that would be the best story. He loses to MJF, and then they have a couple of matches, and then he eventually wins. So that's what I would say about this match. I'm predicting MJF to win, to kind of be like the unstoppable force. So then you have Daniel Garcia being like the underdog that needs some training. He's like the Rudy, or he's like the Rocky. He got his ass kicked now. He's got to come back bigger and stronger in the future. So I think that's going to happen, and that tells a good story. Mercedes Moné versus Hikaru Shida. Mercedes Moné is going to win this. There's no way Hikaru Shida is going to win this. Mercedes Moné is a more popular star. More people know who the hell she is, really. You don't have the right person to beat her unless you do Athena versus Mercedes Moné, or you do Saraya versus Mercedes Moné, or you do Willow Nightingale or another like top babyface. You don't really have that. Or Toni Storm versus Mercedes Moné. Hikaru Shida is not the right opponent for her. This is going to be like a Dave Meltzer type of match. But, and Hikaru Shida, like, even though she did a promo, really, she's not that charismatic to me. But she's not kind of done anything to be treated like a big deal. She could have just like slimed Camille and Mercedes Moné or drenched the ring in blood or do something like that. Really, she could have done something to kind of raise the stakes a little bit with Mercedes Moné. But I do think that I just think that you're gonna keep the title Mercedes Moné. Hikaru Shida has to do a little bit more to kind of be charismatic. To warrant taking the title off of Mercedes Moné. The next match is Bryan Danielson versus Jack Perry. 100% Bryan Danielson's going to win. There's a couple of things that I will say about this. I think this is a great match to have. The Chicago crowd's going to really hate Jack Perry for what happened with CM Punk, and now this is the guy who got CM Punk upset and instigated a thing that led to his termination. That's going to be wild, and that's going to be a great match for Jack Perry to be a heel in. But I would say a couple of things. We don't know what's going to happen. There are two logical outcomes. Bryan Danielson will beat Jack Perry and move on to Grand Slam, or Bryan Danielson will beat Jack Perry, and then Christian Cage will cash in his shot and become the AEW champion. And then when he does that, Bryan Danielson will say, you know what, I wanted a person to beat, when a person, I said, you know, when I lose the title, I'm going to retire, but I'm not going to do that because I retired to somebody beating me like a little bitch, like not a legitimate winner. And then that could set up Christian Cage, Jack Perry, and Bryan Danielson at Wrestle Dream, and that would be like an interesting like 1 year match because you had Jack, it's going to set up Darby Allin, Bryan Danielson, and Christian Cage, and that'll be an interesting match to have 1 year later at Wrestle Dream, just because you had Christian Cage versus Darby Allin, and then Edge coming. So it'll be interesting, like 1 year later type of match. So I think they're going to set up that, and then when you have Darby Allin versus Christian Cage at Grand Slam, that would be a really cool match to have really there, because you have the ultimate babyface versus the ultimate heel, and you don't know what's going to happen out of that. They could have Darby Allin win, and then you could have a blow off match at Wrestle Dream, or you can do something where Christian wins and he uses bullshit, and then you set up Darby Allin versus Christian Cage versus Bryan Danielson. There's a lot that you can kind of do with this. But there's no way Jack Perry's beating Bryan Danielson. If that happened, people would stop watching AEW. People would just feel that he isn't the right person to do that. He plays like a sniveling heel very well. It'll be like a heel, but he doesn't have. It'll be like Carlito beating John Cena for the WWE Championship. He's the right heel, but he doesn't have the right charisma or the drawing power. So it would be really stupid if you give it to Christian Cage. I would think that would be the right drawing power type of thing, really. So it's gonna be a good match. They have the right heel and the right arena. So, but I do think Bryan Danielson's gonna win this one, and then more than likely, I'm betting that Christian Cage is going to become the AEW champion. Either he injects himself into this match, or he does something where the match happens, Bryan Danielson is happy, and then he comes in, cashes it in, has Luchasaurus, Nick Wayne, and Mama Wayne beat him down and becomes the AEW champion. I think that's going to be the way to go. Swerve Strickland versus Hangman Adam Page. You announced that this was going to be an unsanctioned match, and unsanctioned means that in AEW, it means whoever wins and losses don't matter. It's going to be whatever happens. Very, very stupid wording. You should just say no referee. Whoever leaves that cage, wins. Or if two people are down for a unspecified amount of time, really. Or you have something like where Tony Khan will be down and he will watch the match and he will say, okay, he'll make a call as the president of the company, like who's the winner and who's the loser, or if it's a situation where they both can't walk out. I do think that would be a better wording of unsanctioned. So I don't like that. I really don't like how they worded unsanctioned lights out with this. It takes away from the match. But as I said, I do think it's going to be the match that should main event. You did something very compelling. And I also will say that Jack Perry main eventing a AEW pay-per-view is not compelling enough. This thing has the most story going into it. This has been a long story. The big thing they need to do is that Swerve and Adam Page should not be feuding with each other. This has to stop for at least over a year or a year and a half, because this has to end. I really predict that Adam Page is going to win this one for a couple of reasons. It's more compelling if he wins this one, because now you have somebody who now got his revenge, but he may still be in that bloodlust, taxi driver type of mode. Really. What would happen if he has a feud with Will Ospreay? What would happen if he has a feud with, Daniel Garcia or even Darby Allin? Or what would happen if he goes into Jon Moxley's faction and maybe Shane McMahon shows up eventually? There has to be something. You have to do something different. And then Swerve can kind of be like, okay, we're even. I harassed your family, you burned down my house, you showed like what you could do, and I'm just burying the hatchet. There's more. There are more things for Swerve than Adam Page. And then you put Swerve in a direction where he's going after other titles or other opportunities. When he comes back from a short break or hiatus. That'll be the way to do that. And he needs to kind of be in that role of either being an AEW champion when they need it, or competing for the belt, or just kind of being in tag teams or actually just trying to maybe go to ROH and being there the champion there. But he needs to be in the role of being like, now I've been a champion. People beating me is a big deal. I need to create feuds. I need to like maybe even like maybe do another tag team or whatever. There needs to be something for Swerve. But you can't be going to Adam Page. I really think that if you have Swerve win, then it's almost like there's nothing you can do with Adam Page except just to be mad at Swerve, because that's the logical thing. You have to kind of, he's always going to be that dog that's trying to bite the abuser, type of thing, really, So Adam Page is always going to come back until he gets his revenge. So you need to kind of give Adam Page this. It makes the most logical sense. It would tell a better story to have Adam Page actually win. And even if he's a heel, and even though he may get a controversial reaction, people are going to be talking about him way more than Swerve winning. And then, as I said, when you look at Grand Slam and you're going to have Darby Allin versus the AEW champion at that time, you have a top heel in Adam Page. And I think that if you want to make Adam Page a heel champion, you're putting him down the road to do that, really. So I think a victory here will help Adam Page. It's best for business. But I do think the stupidest thing they can do is just give it to Swerve, because, like I've said, the only logical story you can do is two things. You can have Adam Page not be on television for a couple of months, and then you can have a feud with Daniel Garcia or Darby Allin eventually, or you can kind of do something where he comes back and attacks Swerve, and we have a part 4 or part 5, or you say something like the official ending of this is World's End. But this needs to be the ending, because it's gone on for too long. It doesn't become as special. It becomes John Cena versus Randy Orton. You gotta just end this. So I do think that I think Tony Khan's smart enough to understand that Adam Page should be winning this. It's going to create a lot of controversy and just like more buzz than Swerve winning this. Overall, I would say that you have these 8 matches. I would be very happy with this. You just had a big show for All In. So you can't always have 13, 14, 15 match cards. I am not a fan of AEW when they do something like say, okay, well, here's these 8 matches. We're going to shoehorn in a couple of matches that make no sense. Add Jamie Hayter versus Saraya. Have FTR versus Grizzled Young Veterans. You want to make a couple of people be bigger stars. You can do something like have Hologram a match. Have a few people in ROH have a match. Maybe put the Acclaimed versus Undisputed Kingdom. They kind of just say, like, you know what? We want to face new people or whatever, really. So the Acclaim have a match because they're always fun, or you have the Acclaim versus Don Callis family. There's things that they can do to add more matches. And I want to say something like stories and matches do sell pay-per-views, but it's also okay to have situations where it's just matches and no story, because if it's always story, it becomes boring. If it's always matches, it becomes boring. You got to have the mix, really, So I do appreciate what they've done with this card. And then also it's good for AEW to not have a 12-match or 13-match card, because the big thing that's telling everybody is that, if you overly do that, it becomes repetitive, really. So I think that they have a 3-hour show and be like, okay, well, we just had a pay-per-view a few weeks ago. We can't have another super big event. We can't make it like a mega deal, because really your Grand Slam show is a televised pay-per-view type of thing, So I don't mind them just having these 8 matches. I'd actually commend them, because they have to kind of do things a little different. They can't have like these super big shows. But you're not doing WWE where you have like a 2.5-hour pay-per-view type of thing, really, So we'll see what happens. I'm looking forward to watching this on Saturday and seeing what they do with this show. And I think that overall, if I was to give a card a grade, I would kind of say it's not an F, it's not a D, it's not a C, it's not a B. I would say it's really an A- card. And the reason why I give it an A- is that you have different matches. You have, Pac versus Ospreay never happened. Young Bucks versus Blackpool Combat Club. I don't remember the last time that happened. Okada versus those people. You're setting up him and Takeshita. That's different. MJF versus Daniel Garcia. That's a match that's been brewing for a long time. You actually need to just, make a new star. Bryan Danielson versus Jack Perry, that's the right match to get a reaction on the Chicago crowd. You're blowing off Nana, you're blowing off Swerve versus Adam Page, you're blowing off Mercedes, you're blowing off Will Nightingale versus Chris Statlander. So you're ending some things, you're starting some new stars, and then as I said, as a show that follows your All In show, that's what you need to do. You need to be like, okay, this is like our post WrestleMania. Let's start some new things, let's end some things, and let's go forward with the next year. And I believe that they're doing that. Another match I think they're going to do is John Moxley versus Darby Allin. So you're probably going to see John Moxley versus Darby Allin, and Saraya versus Jamie Hayter, and more than likely FTR versus the Grizzled Young Veterans. So all that stuff would be really great to have on the card. And then if you want to do like a 12th match, I would say put Hologram in a match just to really just make him shine and stand out, or do something with the Acclaimed. You can even do like a fail forward. You can have like the Acclaimed, Hologram, and like somebody else versus 4 random people. Undisputed Kingdom and somebody else, really. Undisputed Kingdom, Mordos, and somebody else, just to kind of put some more matches on the card. So that's all I gotta say about this. So I really just think it's gonna be a really good show. I'm happy with it being minimal. As I said before, not too many matches, having matches that matter so far, and doing different things with wrestlers. It's definitely an A- card for me, and we'll see what happens. So it's a great predictions and review and analysis of the card that I did, and we'll see what happens on Sunday.